Hello and welcome back. In this lesson we're going to learn about what's called React component state, which is a fancy way of saying data that's associated with an individual React component. It's generally not just any old data though, it's data that controls the appearance of the component. So whenever the data changes we need to redisplay, we say re-render the component. And what we're going to do, we're going to focus on the button that we built in the last lesson. And instead of it just saying click me, it's going to say clicked XXX times, where XXX is the number of times it's been clicked. And XXX is going to be our React component state. So to start with, let's just actually look at this button text here and put some quotes around it, and see what happens when we render that. If I pop up the browser, we can see that the quotes have just appeared alongside the text. And that's the sort of general rule whenever in basic HTML, where we have a button tag and then a closing button tag, anything placed between them will be considered the content that's to be displayed on the button, including any quotes or special characters. But clearly what we want here is we want to display the contents of a variable, and the variable is going to include that number in it. And luckily, because this is JSX, it's not regular HTML, but it's extended HTML that is going to be transformed by the React plugin. And so React provides us with some extended syntax here, which allows us to place variables on a button instead. So all we have to do is put a couple of braces here, and any JavaScript expression, an expression is just something that has a value, any JavaScript expression can be placed in these braces, and the React JSX to JavaScript transformation will rewrite what we've typed, and it'll ensure that the JavaScript expression is evaluated and placed on the button text. So for instance, I can put this little string here. That's a very simple JavaScript expression. It's just a string literal, but this will work. It'll evaluate it and it'll print it on the button. So now we can see the quotes have gone away. And equally, we could put 1, 2, 3, 4, just a number, and 1, 2, 3, 4 appears. And we can also put a variable here. So I can put message, and I'll create that up here. It's a const message equals our original text. And again, it'll go back to clicked XXX times. So that's all good. The next thing we want to do is to change it so that rather than just saying XXX, it actually displays a number. And to do that, we can use an interpolated string, which allows us to embed a JavaScript expression in the middle of it. And I will have a counter variable. Let's set that up here. Let counter equals 0. And now when the button is rendered, this interpolated string will be evaluated, counter will be converted into a 0, and so it will say click 0 times. That will be assigned to message, and message will be displayed on the button. So here we are, click 0 times. Incidentally, I'm using the internal browser with VS Code here. If you want to do the same, just go to the settings and search for localhost, and you'll find Workbench browser, open localhost links. If you switch this on, then it'll use the internal integrated browser, which is pretty good these days. Okay, so we've got a counter, and the next thing we want to do is ensure that each time we click on the button, the counter is incremented. So to do that, all I need to do is change the handler function so that it increments the counter variable. And let's go and look at what's going on now. Here is our button. When I click on it, the text isn't updating. So we can go and have a look at what's going on here in the debugger. So first of all, let's just put this terminal away, make a bit more space, and bring up the developer tools, which the internal browser, they're exactly the same as for Chrome. We'll go to Source, Components, Center button, and I'll put a breakpoint on this line of code, which is the onClick handler. And now when I click on the button, the breakpoint is hit, and we can see that counter contains the value 3. If I let it continue running and repeat that, click again, counter now contains the value 4, and so on and so on. So clearly the button counting is working just fine. The problem is that the button isn't being re-rendered. Let's just go back to our source code. So what's happening at the moment is the onClick handler is firing. We're increasing the value of this variable counter, but React has absolutely no idea that it ought to redisplay itself when we change this variable. After all, why should it? As far as React is concerned, there's nothing special about this variable. It probably doesn't even know this variable exists. We need to agree with React on some protocol whereby we create some special variable which, when it's changed, the button will be redisplayed. In other words, we need some React component state. In the next lesson, we'll look at how we modify this code and we get it all working nicely using the React use state feature. So I'll see you there.